My name's Paul, and I always like to start by just getting distractions out of the way right away. And I've been told a lot of times that I'm the distraction. I guess I have one of those faces. A lot of people are like, have I met you before? You look familiar. You look like a cousin of mine or whatever. I don't know why I get that all the time, but I just want to get that distraction out of the way. 99 times out of 100, people come up to me and they say, does anyone ever tell you look like someone famous? And I go, yeah, it's pretty much always an insult, but who are you thinking of? And most of the time they say, you remind me of this like political correspondent guy I've seen on CNN. Yeah, I've already heard it. I've already heard it in the crowd, right? They go, yeah, you remind me. And I'm like, Anderson Cooper? And they go, no, not Anderson Cooper. I think his name is James Carville. Yeah, that's just strangers come up and tell me that all the time. I'm like, cool, he's like 25 years older than me, and that's great. Thank you for the compliment. And I mean, I get it. I'm not stupid. I see the resemblance. That's fine. But how are you going to come say that? The worst part about that to me is that when I Googled images of James Carville to use for this presentation, literally what came up first was how much James Carville looks just like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. So really what people are saying is like, hey, does anyone ever tell you that you look just like this guy that looks just like Gollum from Lord of the Rings? What the hell am I supposed to say to that? Like, oh my God, thank you. That is so nice, that's so sweet, I look like Gollum. Right? Next time somebody comes and says, hey, does anyone ever tell you look like someone famous? I'm just gonna go, no, me's not look like no one's famous. And that should end the conversation there. So to get the distraction out of the way, the answer is probably no. Probably you haven't seen me before. You probably don't know me unless we ran into each other, I don't know, like in Middle Earth somewhere. So now that the distraction's out of the way, we're going to get down to business. And what you're here for is to learn how to use humor as a competitive advantage in marketing, in business, and many of you might be here on a company dime, which is great. Maybe you have a boss that was like, all right, I'll send you to that humor thing, but you got to come back with some data. We got to have data, something good, like a graph or a chart or something like that. So I've made one up for you. Every good presentation has to have some kind of obligatory chart or graph. And in my experience, how seriously we take ourselves is inversely related with how serious other people take us. And my background is leadership development. And I think before we can get into content marketing and business, we got to start looking at the human side of humor and how humor works in conjunction with our interactions individually and in groups. So looking at some real research, we'll look at the largest generation in the workforce today, millennials. Now, I like millennial research. It seems like every article that I see anymore is like, millennial statistics this, millennial that. And so it's important, but it's also, to me, like, all right, and we're like studying millennials like it's a completely different species. It's like some nature, National Geographic show, like, have a look at the millennial in its natural state. Don't go too close. All right, that one there, that's a hipster. That'd be a sweet show, though, right? Just following millennials around with a camera constantly. Just like, that hipster made a fatal mistake shaving his beard like that. But if we get serious and look at a little bit of research and know that some of this might also pertain to just human beings in general, but 60% of millennials are leaving their job within the first 3 years, specifically because they feel like it's not a good culture fit. They don't enjoy the culture where they work. 88% want a fun and social work environment. And again, 88%, I'm assuming they interviewed different people, 88% also say that humor, not music, is their number one form of self-expression. And that is different from past generations. I think because humor is so much more widely available now than it ever has been. You've got teenagers watching last night's monologue from Stephen Colbert on their phones while they're eating breakfast before school. That didn't used to happen. And so humor is something that young people are really identifying themselves with. Now, if we look at leadership in general, the Bell Leadership Institute did a study across a lot of different industries and asked people to describe the characteristic traits of the best leaders in their organizations. And the traits that were brought up twice as often as any other trait were work ethic and sense of humor. Literally, work hard, play hard. That shouldn't be that big of a surprise because some of the greatest leaders throughout history were known to have wonderful senses of humor. Abraham Lincoln's a great example. Abraham Lincoln was up giving a speech. In the middle of his speech, a heckler yelled out, "You're two-faced, Abe Lincoln." And, he could get mad and argue with them, yell something back, or just go on and pretend he didn't hear it. They yelled, "You're two-faced, Abe Lincoln." He just smiled and said, "If I had two faces, you really think I would choose to wear this one?" Right? And that's funny. That's funny for obvious reasons. Is it too soon? A couple people were like, "Mm-mm." That's Abraham Lincoln. It's been 200 years, I don't know when it's too soon or when it's not too soon. But I didn't say it. He did, because he didn't take himself that serious. Another great example is Gandhi. Like, don't do Gandhi, man, not Gandhi. But Gandhi was well known to have a great sense of humor. He actually said, he had seen so many atrocities and horrible things in his life. He said, "My sense of humor is what has kept me from feeling suicidal." And he stood up to injustices in Western civilization. One time a journalist asked him, "What do you think of Western civilization?" He could have gone on with that question for hours with something very verbose and powerful, but even Gandhi has to have a laugh every now and then. He said, "What do you think of Western civilization?" And Gandhi said, "I think that would be a good idea." Gandhi, what a card! Right? He just looks like he knows something funny that we don't know, He's just sitting there like, "Oh, yeah, something's funny." Because apparently he sounds like a leprechaun now. I don't know where that came from. I was listening to David earlier. He'd be a good little leprechaun in those little gold boots. I could picture it. You'd say, "Come, follow me, I'm the wee Gandhi. We're going to do a hunger strike." But Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, all sorts of leaders get people excited because they don't take themselves that serious. And what happens is that humor reduces social distance between people. It makes leaders seem less stressed out, more supportive, more approachable. And then that carries over into the organizations. So then in organizations, you get increased morale, productivity. It sparks creativity and trust. So if it's so great, why don't we do it more often? Why do we get stuck into taking ourselves real serious a lot? Because all of us do. All of us have that. And I think it's because it's scary to be silly. It takes courage to use comedy. Lucille Ball said it best, one of the greatest comedic actors of generations. She said, "I'm not funny. What I am is brave." And I couldn't agree with her more. And you're going to have a hard time convincing me to take the risk of using humor on my product or my business if you take yourself too serious, if you can't have a sense of humor about yourself or your business or your product. So with that, we got to start the day today and really kind of get a good mindset, having a sense of humor about ourselves, getting the right frame of mind to continue with this topic. So we're going to do a brief exercise I call guilty pleasure. Okay, I want you to think of a guilty pleasure song, book, movie, TV show, whatever it is that you really like, but you don't tell a lot of people you like. Like maybe you're one of those people that really keeps up with the Kardashians. Whatever it is, okay? And I'm going to give just 1 minute, and I want you to just turn to the person next to you when I say go, and you're going to look them in the eye, introduce yourself, tell them your name, and then tell them your guilty pleasure, whatever it is, okay? So you're just going to introduce yourself like human beings used to do before social media, and then tell them whatever your guilty pleasure is. I'll give you about 1 minute. Go for it. All right, good job. Well done, everybody. So, as you can see, here we are. Congratulations, you're setting the mood. You're setting the tone for the day by taking that risk. I appreciate you doing that. And what was cool is I saw a lot of people smiling and laughing and still continuing. The conversation is great. Here we are, we're 20 minutes into your conference, and you've already made a connection with somebody else. And more importantly, it's 20 minutes in, and you've already got dirt on someone, which is great. You go back, your boss is going to be like, "Did you get me that data?" And you're going to be like, "I don't know, I found out Jim still watches old episodes of Dawson's Creek," which is kind of cool. So since you all were vulnerable, shared guilty pleasure of yours, I'll do the same. And recently I was driving, got a new truck, and I always wanted a Tacoma, so I'm driving down the road, sunny day, got a t-shirt on, sunglasses on, the bald head and everything, you know, just looking badass. And, you know, it's like sun's out and guns out. Driving down the road and jamming, right? And a car full of high school kids pulls up next to me at the light, and they notice me. I don't notice them because I'm jamming, right? But they look at me because they see how hard I roll. I'm just sitting there like... I'm just getting down. I am getting down so much that my microphone just blew off. I wear a microphone in the car even. And it was awkward. Like, I had to do the thing. I looked over, and they're like laughing at me. And I had to do the thing where I'm like, I don't even like Taylor Swift. Roll the window up. I can't get too funky. I can't really show you how it was going down in that Tacoma, but it was badass. Okay, I promise you. And I thought to myself, those kids were laughing so hard, and I thought, man, that was pretty embarrassing. But then I thought, what the hell, who cares? It can be embarrassing. It can be hard to put ourselves out there and to act foolish, but it's important because it tells the other people in our life, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect or serious all the time. You can make mistakes and be yourself. I think of it like this. I think I was on a flight, and there was a little girl and her mom sitting next to me, and they did that announcement where they say, you know, if the mask comes down, assist yourself first if you're traveling with a child before assisting the child. And a little girl looked at her mom and said, Mom, why do they tell you to put your mask on first? And she said, well, why do you think? And the little girl goes, just matter-of-factly to her mom, because you can't help me if you're dead. And I was like, that little girl's smart, right? She's like smarter than me and half my friends. For any of my friends watching this, you know which half you're in. But I couldn't believe it. And it's a metaphor for so many things in our life, including humor. That humor is best when used on yourself and the things close to you first, before putting it out there for other people. Get good at it with yourself first. So if I had to copy edit this a little bit, I would say, place humor on yourself first before helping small startups and others that might need your assistance. Clearly, this woman, was doing just that. I was on a Southwest flight, and they made the announcement and said, if you're traveling with a small child, assist yourself first. If you're traveling with more than one small child, decide which kid you love most and help that one first. I was like, that's pretty good. So she obviously loves that little junior the most. Which, as I was looking at that, going, is that even a child? Or he's like wearing like slacks and a golf shirt. It was like the artist was like, yeah, I can't draw kids. I'm just going to draw a really small 40-year-old man. So whatever. And that's coming from a really small 40-year-old man. Next time I'm on a flight, if some lady goes to put the mask on me, I'm like, I can do it myself, lady, all right? I'm a grown man. She's like, oh my God, sorry. By the way, has anyone ever told you look like someone famous? No. Yeah, I actually like being really small on flights, not just for the legroom, but sometimes they give you those like little cans of Pepsi, those like little miniature cans of Pepsi, those little tiny bottles of water. I just love holding them. Like, now I know what a normal-sized man feels like when he drinks a Pepsi. I'll take another. I'm a man. Thank you. But the point is, humor on yourself first. Get good at it. Set a tone, and then work on making other things funny. So with that, I want to take a break before I wrap up for any questions, comments, random shout-outs, or anyone who just wants to throw that microphone.
So you kind of have to start from a place of confidence. I mean, I know people that are making fun of themselves all the time, and it's just really uncomfortable around them.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
good question.
how do you address that?
There is a lot of research on self-deprecating humor, and you can take it to an extreme, too far. And it needs to start with a place of confidence that you're confident enough to do that. But it doesn't mean you can't look at the pain points of like, what's hard about being you? What is difficult? What are things that, and if you're at a place where you're confident with those things, it's okay. But the other thing is just certain situations. There are certain situations where self-deprecating humor may or may not play into your favor, like a job interview. Sorry, I'm just not all that organized. It's a good, really good question. There's a lot of research on that, and it's a point well taken. As I wrap up, I was thinking about that kid on a flight, and sometimes I think maybe the key is to try to think more like a kid. Because kids have a great way about them of not taking themselves too seriously. In fact, kids, the only time I really see kids take themselves real serious is when you ask them to impersonate an adult. Right? They do a lot of this, and frowning and pointing and being bossy. Kids don't take themselves too seriously, and they have great comedic timing. They innately know when we're taking ourselves too seriously. I was going years ago, before I was ever married, I was taking my little niece, who was about 4, with me. I was getting fitted for a tux to be in a friend's wedding. And in the car, she said, "Well, when are you going to get married, Uncle Paul?" And I was like, "Don't worry about that." We get to the tuxedo shop, though, and there is a breathtaking young woman who's going to be doing this fitting for me. And she's about my age, so I'm like, all right. So, of course, what do? I start talking about myself. And she's taking my measurements, and I'm like, yeah, I'm finishing up my master's degree in leadership and administration right now. I'm pretty much in charge of an entire university. And right then, my niece looks up and goes, "Hey, Uncle Paul, do you remember when we were in the car and you farted?" And I was like, "What? Get out of here." I was like, well, who is this kid? Who brought her? And the craziest thing about it was that didn't happen. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was trying to rack my brain, like, what is this young woman talking about? And the only thing I could think of was like a few days before, she was sitting on my knee, I was reading to her, and she farted on my leg. But I couldn't, argue with her right there in front of this. Like, no, that was you! Maybe bad form. But yeah, that was weird too, because I'm an uncle, I'm not a dad, so she's sitting on my knee. I don't know what to do when a little kid farts on you. It wasn't like a little princess fart, like, oh, did somebody fart? No, somebody farted, right? Sounded like someone was blowing an air hose through a meatloaf. Yeah. And the point is, kids are unpredictable, right? I mean, I didn't know what to do as, that happened, and I was like, did whatever caring adult would do. She farted on my leg, and I'm like, honey, we're not doing that, okay? No, these are wrinkle-free, baby. Sorry, I don't know what happens, but kids are unpredictable. We don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to say, and one minute she's a beautiful little angel on my leg, and the next minute she's a crying ball of methane on the ground. But her comedic timing in that moment to take me off my high horse, you just never know why that can be a good thing. That was about 20 years ago now. And here we are 20 years later, and me and that young woman at the tuxedo shop never saw each other again. She totally ruined it. I'm sorry I can't wrap this up in a perfect little bow for you all. That would have been awesome, but you know what? It's still the real world. It's not a Disney movie, okay? So if I can wrap it up, I would say this. 3 things. Use humor on yourself first, right? Think like a kid, and go out there and be brave enough to be funny. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.